Okay. So I wanted to talk about having a practice. Yeah, because someone in the comments mentioned something about um, describing what way in which I investigated the sense experience. And I didn't at the start of this. I did talk a lot about having a practice, kind of meditation practice or something like that. I can't remember which way I framed it, but kind of as time went on, as this deepens, I noticed that I don't talk about having a practice at all. Really, don't do I? I don't think I do. Um, and I guess that's just because a practice is something that we do. Um, it's an activity. It's initially framed as a personal activity based on the practicer, based on the seeker, so to speak. And it's framed in time. And its context is that I'm doing this for a reason, to change something, to change experience, to achieve something else that's not this, to achieve something better. And I guess what I do is, I can't really remember what I talk about a lot of the time, but I guess what I do is I point, I'm always pointing back to what's already here, what's here now. You know, what ultimately doesn't require a practice. But in that way, there can be a neglecting of the relative aspect of this, of the personal journey. Because, the story is, and even the real experience is, that I am looking to clarify experience. I'm looking to see through the illusions that my mind is telling me. I'm looking for a shift in perspective. I want to almost transcend or get out of the unreal world of thought. Because the world of thought is at some point recognized at a deep level for being what it is, a thought, not real. And when we experience the reality that thought imposes on the person, it doesn't feel right after a while. There's a deep knowing, a deep recognition intuitively that this isn't, you know, that this is an illusion. This is uncomfortable because it's not ultimately real. Um, so I guess you could say, from my own experience, that there was a practice that was undertaken based on the sense of the practicer. But that practice led out of itself. It led out of the need for a practice into what doesn't require practice. Because it's, you could say it's already here, or the practice is made of it, an expression of it. The practice is a thought. So there can be choice making, there can be decision making, which is a thought experience that happens as a functional part of existing in relativity. But what doesn't exist in that is the me that's doing it, the me that is choosing, the me that is practicing. So you could say the practice is opening attention up and back such that the sense of the one who's practicing comes into view, or it becomes clear for what it is, which is just a transient feeling, a felt sense, with co-arising with thought, creating this real experience of the one who needs to do something to get to a better this or to get out of this. So the practice really is like it's like an intention, it's like a decision, and then there appears to be like a framework that is integrated with life, that is like a reminder to orient ourselves towards something that feels more true and more real than the world of thought and identity. And that can look like many things, and I suppose it looks different for different people. But the main thing is like a deep honouring intention of a kind of shift in direction in what is important in life and what is felt to be important in life. That shift may look like we're moving towards something called awakening, but really it's deeper than that at the felt level. Really it points back to what you are as awakeness right now. And that's something that can't fit nicely into a box or a storyline or attainment or an idea about practice, because it is the substance of all of it. It is too free to be limited. It's what appears as limitation. So it's beyond that limitation inherently. But practice is an important part of this journey, because it's like a larger, like macro inquiry, and the intention to orient towards or move towards what's real, that's here right now. An intention not to be pulled away habitually, or have some clarity around what's happening when we're habitually pulled away from this to something that's apparently somewhere else or better, or not this, in the future, and so on. And I do believe that this has to become deeply intuitive at some level. And the inquiry methods that we hear of and utilise in this are just like a framework, a symbolic representation that points to that deep intuition. But they are useful. Essentially what it all points back to is, in experience right now, is there any real separation that exists in experience right now? You could argue the main one being me as a separate one here, a separate world out there, separate objects within it. separate points in time, a separate past, future, and present, separate thoughts, separate sounds. Really, the inquiry is pointing to what's here, past the suggestion of separation, such that the suggestion of separation can clarify for what it is, which is always a thought. In mind, this maybe starts in mind as the thinker. Are there separate thoughts? One thought after another? Are the thoughts separate things appearing across the timeline? Is me as the thinker here separate from my thoughts? Are there thinker and thoughts? Or thoughts and awareness? Or thoughts and awareness of those thoughts? What's actually there? What is the experience most immediate? Is there anything more than just thoughts? Or thinking? Or thinkingness? This initial layer of identity, it is very much based in mind, like focused into the space of mind. And it's based on the assumption of me, the one subject to my thoughts, the thinker, the one that's in control of it. When it clarifies, like I say all the time now, the substance of that thinking experience, like what the thoughts are made of, what the me who appears to be the thinker is made of, and how that's the same as substance as thoughts. How in the thinking experience there is only that substance. It may be called I am, or awareness, or knowingness, or something like that. When we get in touch with that substance, it clarifies for its qualities what it is as a sense. Then that sense and its movements, its forms, become more apparent in experience. The practice leads us to allows us to be able to see more clearly what's happening now. Because there's a disidentification with the content of the thoughts, what the thoughts are talking about, and suggesting as a reality, suggesting as the me that relates to them. There's a distraction thing going in here. There's like a subject-object split, a relationship, harnessing of attention and directing it into the space of thought. It's all based off this assumption of the thinker, of the subject apart from my thinking experience. When we look for that, all we see are thought objects. The subject there just isn't present. It's not even there, or can't be found as an object. So it expands out into this kind of sense of pure subjectivity that also includes all the objects. So there's a duality that is collapsed there. And then what becomes more overt in experience is the sense experience as it is immediately here. And then there's a questioning of that, there's an inquiry into that, and a kind of practice around that. But it often takes a kind of more natural and flowing, intuitive, less structured form. There can still be confusion and stuff like that. We can still think we're looking for something that's different from what this is, or not here. And as we see those thoughts coming up in experience, just thoughts, just a thought. Again, the identity is being deconstructed from the space of mind. And with that goes this augmented reality, this thought augmented reality that it creates the real experience of a separate me in this separate world of separate things that is here relative to that over there, that is this size relative to this size, or so on and so on. We don't find a real experience of that. You know, a world that is inherently out there as I move through it, and when I move past it, it's not in my experience, it's still there, inherent, waiting for me to come back. The suggestion in that is that I am here, inherent, moving through it. We don't find that. That's not an experience. That's a thought experience, but that's not what this is most immediately. What this is unknowable. Unknowable in that way. Paradoxical, mysterious. It's too free to be captured from a point of view. You know, because there's not even a position in it that can look at it. It's infinite. It doesn't have locality. It doesn't have dimension. It can't be harnessed or comprehended by the mind. So very simply, the practice is just about looking at what's happening now that is suggesting a real knowable reality with me in the centre of it. What's happening that is suggesting separation. So I generally point to this in the visual sense. So you could ask inquiries like, this is aware, I am awareness. Does what I am as awareness know separate objects? Or does it just know one scene, one awareness? Are there separate objects, so to speak, from the point of view of awareness? Something can clarify that, you know, there appear to be separate objects here, but, and this might sound stupid, but they're all equally aware at the same time in the seeing. They're all equally just here at the same time in the seeing, regardless of how far away or how close they are. But there's something happening here that's based on my perspective, my point of view, that seems to make it look like they're out there and they're separate things. It seems subtle at first, like something subtle starts coming through. But we start to get the sense that what I'm looking for is here, it's just here. It's not going anywhere. I'm starting to become aware of this, starting to clarify, but nothing's changing. I'm not seeing anything different. So the whole framework of relativity starts to come into view as a thought, an augmented reality made in mind, all based on this assumption of the looker who's in here looking out from this relative position. And then we're like, where is that looker? I feel like I'm looking from here out there, a world that's apart from me, this mind body. I feel like that's real, so that's reality. But you know, you might remember David said something like, if you feel like you're experiencing a real knowable reality, question it. So then you question it and you look, where am I that's looking? Because it's all based on me, the looker, the subject. And you try and find it, it's just here. Looking back for it or something like that. Or where does me awareness begin, or my awareness begin, and form begin? Where is the threshold here between these two things? Me in here and that world out there. My awareness shooting out and looking at an object that's over there, where is the threshold there? Where is the boundary there? There isn't one. There isn't one. It's augmented onto the raw sense experience with a thought interpretation that's knowable. It seems like a real reality. But it's not what's most real. It's for some people, right, and most of you won't be like this, but for some people this might just sound absurd because they think I'm describing something that, like, the descriptions, the language here refers to a real reality, but it doesn't. So things like awareness is a word. The idea is the identification with that word is it refers to a real experience of awareness or a real thing, but it doesn't. It's just a word. It's just a concept. It doesn't. The word doesn't even point to anything real in experience. So that's why I say that sometimes it triggers people a wee bit that there's no awareness. Awareness isn't a thing. Awareness is a made-up concept. That for a while we believe refers to something real called me or called awareness. There's an identification with this basic sense of existence. But that's what we're starting to see through here when we look at the augmented reality. What is most primary about experience? What is an interpretation? What is being added to experience to frame it in a way that's knowable, even in the most vague and subtle way? It's a good thing I'm not vain, because I look like an absolute troll right now in this in this light. So if you're listening to this and you're getting the sense of that, and you're like, there's something here that's not a thing, I'm looking into my experience and it starts to become kind of mysterious, like elusive, unknowable. And there might even be like a creepy freakiness to it that can't remember who I was talking to in the comments about this. Like it really creeped me out for a while, and I got these huge fear responses because you're stepping out of the known world into what's here that's unknowable. That's a radical thing. That's a frightening thing to do. It doesn't have to be. And that's when we'll start to back off from this. And we might cling on to our ideas and concepts about what is this, that it can be known in a whole neat way, like the mind of God or infinite awareness, infinite subject, beingness, knowingness, whatever. Very vague and subtle concepts that house the most basic sense of identity. Wrap it up into something vaguely knowable. But what is completely unknowable about this? What is beyond the world of the known? The practice is opening up into this by relaxing the augmented reality, relaxing that which is known, that I can relate to as a self. And the inquiry continuously inquires into experience. And it's best to do it in a relaxed way, by the way. I could be wrong, like that's what I think. That's my experience. And when doing something that you're engaging in that you enjoy, that takes the pressure off of having to find something, having to change this, that overarching context, which is a limitation of practice, that suggesting that I'm doing this for a reason. Whereas what we're looking for in that is the reason. What is suggesting that there's a reason at all? And it's all here and it's all available all the time. So you can make this like, I think this is the best thing to do, right? make this practice your new hobby that you do just for the sake of enjoyment, sake of doing it in a nice, relaxed, curious way, and make it fun. And get all that nonsense about having a shift or having a no self awakening or something like that. That's all nonsense. Just get rid of that. I know that's pretty much all I talk about, but at the same time, it's just like I'm just talking nonsense. I'm just making up these words. It doesn't, it's here. Me making up the words is pointing to them being words, them being concepts. It's pointing to the augmented reality that we're sharing right now. It's just when it doesn't seem, when it's not clear that it's a thought, it seems like a reality, the reality, and that's it. When it clarifies as a thought, the whole thing becomes a paradox. And it's deeply enjoyable. Because it's like, this is the crazy thing about it, right? And it's just constantly mind-blowing. The crazy thing about it, right, is the limit of mind. And I got really into pushing the limit of mind in a really extreme way. We were talking about this in the comments. Personality-wise, being a previous addict, engaging in like extreme sports and risks. There's an element of my personality there that enjoyed pushing the limits. And it kind of got a little bit like a big way into it, like really pushing the limits. And the crazy part about this is the limit of mind is what makes it incredible. In that way, as kind of like the limits of experience. So you see that there's this augmented reality that makes this look known, but simultaneously at the same time that there's what's not that, and it seems to be impossibly seamless together. Again, non-dual, there aren't two things there, augmented reality and another reality. It's seamless, which is incredible, and you can explore that to the absolute limit, the threshold of the mind. And then you get to a point where the mind almost completely relaxes. The interface we're using to engage with reality relaxes. And then it's just gone. Like, it's just not there anymore. It's a function that goes on and continues for a practical reason, but you get to a point where its reality is completely gone. It's not real anymore. It's not the primary reality anymore. You can't explain what this is in the absence of that, but there's almost like that there can be an absence of the augmented reality, like a relaxing of that into what's not that, but doesn't exclude that. And it's just mind-blowing. And it really, you push it to the limits. At the start, it's a lot of fear, or it was for me, and terror and stuff like that. Even like aversion and jumping back into an internal world to kind of stabilize myself and breathing and stuff like that. But then you see that that's not based on anything. Who's the one in here trying to stay in here? There isn't an in here and an out there. So it just relaxes. And it's like, see this sense of having a world that's out there and I move through it, and it stays there as I'm moving through it, even when it's not in my experience. Like, it's just there like a map, like a solid world. And me being the inherent one moving through it gives it its inherent solidity as an existing real thing that's just there, even when I'm not perceiving it. Like, I'm not going to be able to describe. Like, that's the known, that's knowable, that's enclosed, limited. Scary because you're the small thing in here in a big out there universe. But when that's not there, I just can't describe to you what this is like. It's like but it's exactly like what you're experiencing now, but it's like the whole universe is just here, and it's infinite, it doesn't have limits. You know, my mind tried to frame this in a solipsistic way where it was like, this is hyperspace and I'm floating in it or something like that. But these framings that come back to try and reinforce the me get let go of as well. And then it just simply is what it is, which is infinitely fascinating. Anyway, I'm going to have to go now, but that'll do for now, and I'll talk to you next time.